we were able to increase the paid family, well, we were able to add a new benefit on the paid family leave program, 2 weeks for prenatal leave for women. And then in terms of medical leave, which anyone can take for care of self, in terms of if you have a surgery or if you're sick, et cetera, we have upped that to 6 weeks. It had started at 2. So we have some big changes there. There are also lots of changes in terms of workforce development. We provide additional funding for essential workers with a hero pay fund. We provide additional funding for excluded workers who have been ineligible for unemployment. And as well, we also provided additional cash payment to individuals who have been unemployed during the pandemic and to no fault of their own have experienced a delay from the Department of Employment Services in terms of you actually receiving your benefits. And so I know that a lot of people have been writing into us about that. But there's a lot of great stuff happening in the Labor Committee. In terms of government operations, we did a bold investment in the Office of Human Rights to finally clear the backlog and ensure future competency going forward for that particular agency. And I'm really excited about the investments that we made for the LGBTQ community through housing vouchers for seniors, investing in veterans, and then finally funding the Bella Evangelista and Tony Hunter Panic Defense Act. So lots of great stuff going on there. In transportation and the environment, I know this is definitely an issue in terms of 1B. So funding for the Vision Zero legislation has been essentially in limbo since the law was signed in and underfunded at best. What we have done there is for all new ATE camera revenue. So these are the automated traffic enforcement cameras. All of that revenue will now automatically go to funding this bill. So there's an automatic tie between traffic enforcement and then pedestrian, bike, and just regular public community safety as it pertains to what's going on our streets. We also were able to expand some funding for the WABA Trail Ranger program to make sure that our trails, if you go into the parks or Anacostia Trail, et cetera, that they're safe, that they're clean. And we're really excited about that expansion, as well as some other things we did around lead pipe replacement and some other issues in terms of environmental things. And then in the committee of the whole, I'm really excited about some of the bold investments that we made in terms of education. Some of the things that I worked on with the chairman in particular was around, providing additional funding for the Office of the Ombudsman for Public Education. We also provided some additional funding for the Office of Out of School Time to make sure that we have enough slots for after school and before care once school gets back in. We started work on a stabilization fund to help our adult charter schools in terms of their workforce pieces. Just chock full of lots of good stuff. There's still lots more stuff that we need to do over the next couple of weeks, but I feel like I've been talking a lot, so I will stop there and see whether or not you guys have any sort of questions on the budget. Or we also had a legislative meeting earlier this week where we took some action on, call them controversial, flavored tobacco and some other things were on the agenda. I'm happy to answer any questions that you all might have. I will say, just sort of in advance, if you had any questions around Stay DC, we do have a call tomorrow with the executive, and I have submitted some additional questions and pertaining to the fact that we have a number of individuals who've contacted our offices whose applications have been approved, and yet they still have not received payment weeks later. And so we're trying to figure out what's going on there in terms of the backlog. But I will stop, see what you got.
Go ahead, Commissioner Ebert.
First off, I just want to say,
sorry, if the community has any questions, please feel free to go ahead and put that in the Q&A. And on to you, Commissioner York.
Thank you. First off, I just want to say thank you, Council Member Henderson, and to Council Member Shea for introducing the Vision Zero funding. That has been work that people have been fighting for a long time since the bill was passed initially. And it's just really exciting to see that there's a path forward. It's something that we are that we wanted to focus on as ANC 1B to find a way to get funding for Vision Zero done, and it just makes me really excited to see that work is being done to make sure that it gets funded. One question I did have is in regards to the flavored tobacco issue. I know it's a very controversial issue. One question I have is about enforcement. Could you just clarify whether or not the law would it be limiting the sale of the flavored tobacco? Would it criminalize people who have flavored tobacco? How is this? Could you just kind of elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, so thank you for that question and the opportunity to clarify. So first off, the legislation focuses primarily on the sale of flavored tobacco products. So it is not against the law for an individual to possess it or to use flavored tobacco, but businesses in the district will not be able to sell it. And as such, the enforcement, we did pass an additional amendment that was presented from Councilmember Allen to just clarify that it is DCRA that is doing the enforcement, not MPD. I also want to add a clarification too that perhaps a lot of people have not realized yet. So there is a physical impact associated with this legislation as it pertains to a reduction in tax revenue. It's about a $3 million reduction, and nowhere in any of the bills that the committees have passed thus far this year do we fund it. So that bill, pending the signing from Mayor Bowser, she has a number of days to do so, it will be subject to appropriations. And so what I anticipate happening is that, well, I don't want to put words in mouth. Yeah, anything can happen in the next couple of weeks here. But right now, it's not funded, which means that it can't be implemented. I will add, though, for folks, is that the federal government has signaled that they do plan to ban the sale of flavored tobacco products, including menthol products, next year. So if it's not us, it will likely be the feds, and there will be some type of wind down effect that begins in 2022.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Council member, I'm so sorry to have been late to join and miss the swearing in of my friend and colleague, Commissioner Farnan. Welcome. I'm so sorry I missed that. Very exciting. I have 4 questions on different areas.
Okay.
The first being on the emergency. Is the emergency going to be extended, and is it extended for our drawdown of federal funds and allocation of funds for spend?
Oh, you're talking about the public health emergency?
Yes.
Okay, so we do anticipate an extension of the public health emergency happening at our next legislative meeting, which is also our last legislative meeting before recess coming up here in July. I don't know what the date of that ending is. What I do know is in conversations with the executive, we've been asked to try to extend it to essentially the end of the fiscal year, which will be September 30th. And then all of the various roll-offs will kind of then happen from there.
Well, I think a lot of people don't understand what's tied to that. And it's the drawdown of funds and the spend of funds.
Correct.
Plus the unemployment benefits for folks and help for our small businesses.
Correct. So
These are all very important things.
All tied to the public health emergency, as well as the funding to be able to continue to do free testing for COVID, as well as the vaccine sites, et cetera, are all tied to that. I will note that the federal funding in terms of unemployment insurance does end prior to the fiscal year. So that ends on September 6th,
right,
while the fiscal year ends on September 30th.
Thank you. I did get an opportunity to join you on a prior health committee hearing. It was on the challenges that we had registering for vaccinations. Mm-hmm. And that's polite, the challenges. Thankfully, we got through that and we got a better system in place. I was disappointed. I happen to serve on the HIE advisory board. that when we talked about vaccination and vaccination registrations, they proposed a new system. Seems that when we build new systems, we add new cost. When we can add things to existing systems that are meant to contain all the health information, essential information about a patient in the District of Columbia, and help providers provide better care and reduce cost in care. So I was a little disappointed in that, and I hope the Health Committee will continue to push on, let's use systems in the right way to deliver the best care and get the best cost. Tying back to the emergency, and of course the ANC's meeting virtually doesn't rise to the level of unemployment compensation and that, but it is important to us. Gottlieb has been somewhat confused with his advice. We were advised that the emergency was ending and we must meet in person beginning next month. Looks like that's extended and we're going to get an option. I know you've discussed about whether we can meet in person or virtually and do hybrids. And by hybrids, I mean all virtual or all in person, not half and half. That doesn't work well. I think we have learned a lot during the pandemic about how to run effective meetings, both in person and virtually, particularly around our committees as well, and get participation. So I hope the council will consider that when they're looking at it in the operations committee. Also, Commissioner Boehner has prepared a budget letter that is extremely detailed, going through lots of the agencies, but also recommending for the ANCs what we need for operations to continue the OCTO support that we've gotten during the pandemic because we could use the federal funds. When those funds go away, we lose the support from OCTO because we're not part of the executive and we're kind of sort of part of the legislative. And we lose OCTO support for a lot of the teams, for WebEx, for a lot of services that we've enjoyed for the past year and been able to actually be more effective. So I hope the operations committee will consider that and you will be an advocate. I understand that Councilmember McDuffie introduced legislation today on the adding $70 million to support small businesses in recovery. That's additional funds. It's a big number, but on the surface, it seems to be a good idea, but always when you get into the details, it's a different story. And our small businesses in 1B have suffered greatly during the pandemic as they have across the city. We're looking forward to a return to profitability and getting people back on the street and enjoying this as a wonderful destination and the tourism here. And finally, and a little bit on a local and personal level, we have a resolution or a bill pending for Alice Washington, who was a long time, she lived in Sherman Avenue for 40 years. Her daughter has now lived there for 40 years. She was an early voting rights advocate and would help organize and get people to the polls and make sure that their vote counted. And we've asked that a section of Sherman Avenue be named as an honorary naming for her. It's stalled with the chairman, as are a lot of ceremonial namings. And I wonder if we can break those free before recess. I think all you need is one hearing on them.
Yeah. So I guess on that particular question,
I know I threw a lot of things at you there.
Yeah, there's a lot that's currently pending in the committee of the whole. I'll be honest with you, I don't think we could break it free before recess, only in that the chairman would have needed to schedule a hearing on that. And I know that they haven't necessarily been scheduling hearings on legislation at this point, but the fall, it will be there.
It's just, I mean, with everything happening, it's not getting his attention. But it's important to our constituents and to the community to see that they get recognized for the hard works of the generations of people who've lived here.
I totally hear you. But yeah, we
Thank
could definitely
thank
look at-
you.
I can't commit to that because I personally cannot discharge legislation and or call a hearing. So for a committee I don't chair, but we could definitely work on that.
I'll send the information to Amanda. Maybe you sign on as well.
Okay, perfect.
Commissioners, other questions for the council member? It's such a rare treat to have a council member that we can ask questions. So let's use this time.
I don't have a question really, but I did just want to comment that about the support for ANC hybrid meetings. I do think that probably what the council has shown and what we've seen in our ANC meetings is that, you know, for some, the virtual meeting enables more people to participate. For others, it's a barrier. So I do hope that we don't just write off hybrid meetings off the table, because having an in-person meeting where there is a component that could be streamed and have people ask questions, I think is a great way to, you know, best of both worlds, have people engaged. So I hope that that's not completely off the table as an aside.
Yeah, no, I would say that in terms of that, it is a topic that the committee is dealing, or it is on our radar. But it's also something that the council is having to figure out as well as we think about what happens post recess, the reopening of the Wilson building to the public, and then also the return of the council, you know, to doing that work as well. You know, hybrid meetings have worked exceptionally well in terms of allowing more people to participate in the process. But on the same side, we do have a lot of people who are clamoring for us to come back in person as well. So we are also trying to figure out what that balance is or what that will look like. And frankly, I think that if the council is going to be running hybrid meetings, then we certainly should give the ability of ANCs to do so as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. Amanda?
Great, thank you. Just, I think for the benefit of folks who are joining, and then also for commissioners on like the schedule of the budget on the next votes, and then what people can expect, I feel would be great just to kind of sum up what you just discussed with markups.
Okay. I will. So for folks who have just joined, once again, the committee markups process has concluded today. We did our final markup. There were 5 committee markups today. It was a lot. It was a lot that happened. But this doesn't mean that the process is over. So what happens from here next? So next Thursday, July 8th, the council has a budget work session, which happens all day. It will not be in person, so it will be virtual. There'll be a link online. It also will be on channel 13 for folks to be able to weigh in, where we're talking about not just what happened in committees, but also what are the priorities we feel like we still need to fund together that couldn't necessarily be addressed in a particular committee. So for instance, there are some committees where there's this really big issue that everybody knows is a problem, but they don't have enough money in their agency cluster to like resolve it. They need the full weight of the entire budget in order to get there. The other thing that's also really important is that as part of one of the rules of engagement for this year's budget, no committee individually could consider tax increases or any revenue changes. So that is something that can only happen at the larger committee of the whole level. I know a lot of people have been emailing about a just recovery and adding additional revenues, et cetera. That was not something that we could do during the committee process. So that is something that takes place next. The first full vote on the budget will take place on July 20th. Excuse me. And so that will be the first time that we see what other larger changes have taken place between committee markup and then for the full budget vote. There will also probably be a number of amendments that folks raise at that particular time. And so if you are still looking to advocate for something, you have essentially until July 20th to make that happen in hopes of making, I'm gonna say your voice heard, but sort of making that voice heard, if you will. The second vote on the budget will take it's kind of hard to kind of explain, but there are 2 bills essentially that are in terms of the budget. You have the Local Budget Act, which is dollars and cents, and then we have a Budget Support Act, which is legislative language to back up the policy pieces of the budget. The second vote on the dollars and cents will take place on August 3rd. So after that point, we can make no more dollars and cents changes. Any dollar and cent type changes will have to take place from a reprogramming from the mayor's office. And then on August 10th, that is the second vote and last vote on the policy changes in terms of the budget. So we will wrap up the budget process on August 10th. The council is officially on recess beginning on July 15th. You know, what is recess? Are y'all on vacation? Because I just heard you say you're still working on the budget. Exactly. So what happens during recess outside of the budget is really not a lot. During recess, council members are not allowed to introduce legislation. There will be no hearings that take place. And we can't vote on anything during that particular time. And the council recess concludes on September 17th. So from July 15th to September 17th, there's a lot going on. But you're gonna have to wait. Sorry, I know I'm over time and you have to start your official meeting. My bad.
No, I can delay that. I do have one final question though, that since you were talking about budget.
Okay, and I think Commissioner, one of your colleagues also has his virtual hand raised.
Do you foresee an opportunity for reprogramming to handle the changes that we want to do without increasing taxes?
I do not think so. And the reason I will say that is because we have a lot of additional funding, federal funding, that is technically considered one-time or two-time dollars, meaning it will expire after a certain point and then we kind of have to deal with it. For some of the things that folks have been talking about in terms of wanting to address, whether it be housing or childcare, it requires permanent recurring funding.
Right. I know that some in Congress have noted that mistakenly that we're a wealthy city. We're not a wealthy city, but we're not a poor city. And we do have to look at reprogramming where there's some waste. And if there's a shortfall, then you consider increases, appropriate increases.
Right.
Who had their hand up? Commissioner Luther.
Yes, question. Good evening, everyone. I wanted to ask a question about basically what would they be doing in helping senior citizens and disabled and people with disabilities in Ward 1?
That's a great question. Unfortunately, I don't sit on the committee that has aging in it. So I can't give you a very detailed answer because I haven't had a chance to sort of look at their committee report in detail. But I do know that Councilperson Anita Bonds, at-large Councilmember Anita Bonds, who chairs that committee, did make investments in terms of housing. I believe in terms of food security was another thing. And there was another sort of large bucket area, but unfortunately, I don't have specifics. What I can, I feel bad sort of asking Amanda to do this because she is the commissioner in this meeting. So what I can do before I leave the meeting is I will put in the link for all of the committee budget reports so that folks, if you're interested in seeing what action took place, you can take a look and see it sort of all in one location.
Yes, thank you. Only reason why I asked because I'm the president of Garfield Tourist, the third largest public housing in DC for seniors, disabled, and veterans. And it's like, you know, we not getting our proper duties in that building or for any seniors or disabled at all. We never really had. That was the reason for me running to be a commissioner, to be able to provide and help for them. I'm not a senior at all, but I'm the president and the commissioner of that building. And I would love to see them get a lot of opportunities and the best bang of the buck, because you got to remember they lived their lives, and you know they were our future. So now they not our past, but they should live their golden years. And You know, I've been going through a lot of mess, you know, with public housing and anyone else trying to provide and get stuff for these seniors. And, you know, when it comes to the end, even the mayor and everybody else, they came to Garfield Terrace for their votes. And it's like we've been forgotten for years.
No, I understand. And I apologize for not knowing specifics of what's going on in that budget. I will know more before next week when we have the full conversation. But I did include a link in the chat to anyone who's interested in looking at the committee documents to see what they did. I can say, as a former council committee director, put a lot of work into my budget reports. I hope people read them. Great narratives, lots of policy recommendations, good breakdown of the issues, all the various things. But if you don't have time to read some of these documents, many of which are over 100 pages, they all have executive summaries right at the top. That could tell you what's being funded and what's not. So there you go.
Council member, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's truly an honor to have our council member at large, because you do represent across the city and look at all the aspects, including what works in, say, the ANCs, and how we can participate and how we can work together as one government and really serve our constituents. I hope that when we're back in person, you could join us and meet our neighbors. They're truly unique depending on which area you go to, and you really get a lot of good feedback and honest feedback from folk.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for the invitation. Congratulations again, Amanda, and I hope you all have a great rest of the week.
Thank you. Happy 4th. Commissioners, I'll now call our meeting to order. Madam Secretary, if you'll call the roll.
Yes. Commissioner Handerhan,
Present.
Commissioner Lasky,
Here.
Commissioner Umar,
Here.
Commissioner Thomas,
Here.
Commissioner Sanchez,
Present.
Commissioner Floyd,
Here.
Commissioner Ewert,
Here.
Commissioner Bana,
Present.
Commissioner Turner,
Present.
Commissioner Delaney, Commissioner Farnan,
Present.
Commissioner Harris, present. We have a quorum of 11 of 12.
Thank you. Commissioners, before you, you have to, you have an agenda. Are there additions to the agenda? Commissioner Handerhan.
Thank you, Chairman. Was contacted by Shaw Main Street and would like to add to new business a kind of pro forma support letter for a mural in SMD 1B. I think the community would support this. We just didn't get it in time for the formal agenda, so we'd like to add that to new business. It's basically to support a mural at 1921 8th Street, which is at the corner of in between 7th and 8th on Florida. You can see it from the CVS parking lot.
Normally, this is handled by the commissioner themselves. We don't weigh in. Without objection, I'll add it to the consent agenda. Is there objection? Commissioners, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I move we approve the agenda.
A second.
All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Nay? Abstentions? Thank you. You have a consent. We have a consent agenda that includes the June draft minutes, the delegation letter that says that any commissioner can act on behalf of the chair before the council or any agency, and that the chair of ZPD can represent the commission before zoning, HPRB, and related. And Muriel on the mural.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? It passes. Thank you. Ward 1 Joint Education Committee, Commissioner Sanchez.
All right, good evening, everyone. At our last meeting, we kind of wrapped up budget season preparations. Commissioner Miller is going to give testimony on behalf of the committee. And we also started planning ahead for the 2021-2022 roadmap of where we would like to take the committee going into the next school year. So we're focusing on ways that we can encourage youth supports, family supports, and then other support for the community. So within the youth support bucket, we're looking at how we can center on disconnected or at-risk youth, so LGBTQI communities, homeless youth, supporting mental health programs, youth programming and out-of-school time tutoring. In the family bucket, we're looking at language access, housing security and food security. And then, within kind of the community side of things, we're looking at kind of broader COVID reopening safety issues, centering that around kind of engaging families and educators and how to resource the schools with that. Looking at transportation issues that impact education. We're looking at community and school safety. So we're planning to try to do a cross-commission meeting and bringing in all of our Ward 1 partners, and then hopefully setting that meeting up in September as we go into the next year to see what kind of feedback we can get from the rest of the ward. So if anyone has questions about that or would like to participate, I'm happy to point them in the right direction. Thanks.
Any questions? Mr. Sanchez, thank you for representing us on this joint committee. It's good to have a Ward 1 voice, and particularly with 1B. And we have a lot of schools that are just outside Ward 1 or outside of our ANC. So it's good to be coordinated, particularly with Commissioner Miller in 1A. Short-term family housing, Commissioner Floyd.
I have no update today.
Public safety and community engagement.
I'll let the lieutenant go first, and then we have some updates from our June meeting. Thanks, Lieutenant, for being here.
Hey, good evening. Thank you for having me again. We are clearly approaching Independence Day, which can be an interesting time of year in the city with regard to fireworks and gatherings. I spoke, emailed with a couple commissioners about, I guess, firework related calls and how best to address them. So I'll kind of relay what we talked about via the email. The police department is here to respond to what community members think is important. That is a wide range of things. And personally, with the 4th of July, I kind of lower my bar on things I would feel like I need to call the police for, if that makes sense. There are fireworks that are just annoying. And this is just me being frank. There's fireworks that are annoying, and then there's fireworks that are dangerous, whether it's people setting them off in dumpsters, extremely close to buildings, other public safety hazards that could be very dangerous. And I think something that kind of helps the police department is, again, we're here to respond to anything that's important to the community. But if people can sort of help us prioritize by saying, that's annoying, but we don't necessarily need to call 911 for that, versus that is dangerous and we absolutely need to call 911 for that. We have firework officers assigned to every shift, and their job is to go around, handle the fireworks complaints, confiscating fireworks. We have a partnership with the DC Fire and EMS services. We confiscate, or what we confiscate is seized and destroyed by the fire department. But we have officers that are assigned to investigate those complaints. The 4th of July, typically, historically, my entire career, and I've been doing this over 15 years now, is an extremely busy night in DC. There are lots of calls for service, and at any given time, there could be up to 40 pending 911 calls or even more. So we will get to the calls. It just, some of the lower priority ones, like the nuisance calls, take a little bit of time to get to. But when people have complaints about fireworks, it's important to still call 911. The 911 is routed to a call taker, which goes directly to the dispatcher, and they are the ones who prioritize. Say you have a violent crime versus a complaint about fireworks, they're going to prioritize obviously the violent crime. Hopefully we don't have that. But the Office of Unified Communications is a really important filter between callers and the police department and even the fire department. So I encourage people, if you do have these complaints about dangerous situations or anything else that you think the police need to address, please call 911 so that way it can get filtered down to us, and the appropriate officers, detectives, whoever, whatever it applies to, can come out and respond to the concerns. Aside from the upcoming fireworks show that's going to be in the city, overall crime is doing pretty well in 1B. I'm probably going to be a broken record here and say that auto vehicle related crimes are the biggest driver. And in the last month, it's been theft from autos. So people leaving items in their car and things getting stolen from vehicles. So that's all I have open to any questions or anything.
Lieutenant, have the shot spotters been turned off? I know they're normally turned off for the 4th of July because fireworks actually will signal that there's a shooting when there's not a shooting. It's the one time of the year that you do that.
They have not been turned off yet, because even this morning I was getting shot spotter notifications. I don't know that they actually totally turn it off. I think they just stop dispatching from shot spotter. I forget exactly. Say it again.
It's really the same difference.
Yeah. Because it can be overwhelming, and shot spotter differentiates between the two, or tries to, but we know how the reality of that. So, but no, it's still working. And like I said, even as when I left work today at noon, there were notifications through the app going off. So it's still in effect.
Commissioners, questions?
Yes, I have a few in regards to updates on different incidents that have occurred over the last month. So first, I was wondering if you have any updates on the pedestrian that was struck by a vehicle on the intersection of 16th, New Hampshire and U Street.
I do not, but I can look that up and get back to you. Is there a specific update you're looking for in reference to that?
Yeah, I'm wondering if you were able to find, I guess, the suspect. I do know that based on what was released, it was a hit and run. And if there's any other kind of updates you have from that.
I'll have to. You said 16th in New Hampshire.
16th, New Hampshire and U Street. That really complicated, messy.
Yeah. Do you know what date it was so I can follow up and email you?
I need to go back and look. It was on a Thursday /
It was the Thursday before Juneteenth.
Oh, yep. Well,
okay.
I believe, yeah. So I think it was around 7 p.m., 7:50 p.m.
I'll be able to find it from the address. I can't easily look it up from home right now, but tomorrow when I get to work with our CAD system, I'll be able to look it up and look up the case notes on it.
Okay, great. Yeah, I would really appreciate that.
Sure.
I'm wondering if you have, a constituent reached out to me about a shooting that occurred on, I believe, in the early hours of June 19th. I did email Commander Kim about this, but I think it may have been a unlawful discharge of something, but he said it was the 1300 block of V Street, but it actually, I think, may have occurred on 14th Street because the constituent who told me about it had a bullet that ricocheted into their unit. They were put in touch with MPD, or they did reach out, but they didn't receive any other updates as to kind of what occurred, if anything had happened, and I didn't hear anything. So I'm wondering, I can send you more details for an update on that as well too, if that's helpful.
Yeah, I believe they're still trying to drum up leads for that case. Again, I can follow up with you again on that one.
Okay. And then I'm wondering if you have an update on the shooting that occurred this past Monday on the 2000 and 2100 block of 14th Street.
Yes, I do. There was the one on the 28th is, I believe, what we're talking about.
Yeah.
There was one arrest in reference to the shooting for possession of a handgun. They're still investigating the other part of the shooting and still working on leads, but they were able to make one arrest in reference to that and take an illegal gun off the street. They're still looking into leads as to the rest of it. But the great thing about 14th Street is a lot of video and a lot of evidence to comb through.
And is the person, I guess the victim, are they doing okay?
Yes, it was non-life threatening from what I have here, and they're in the process of recovery.
Okay. And finally, sorry, another update, although this isn't in Ward 1, but it very much borders Ward 1. I'm wondering if you have any more information on the shooting that happened on the 1400 block of R Street, I guess 14th and R.
So the detectives have put out, and I'm sure you've seen it on the news, the lookout for the vehicle. The leads are still being worked on. I was actually out there this afternoon to help out the arborists, the city arborists, because there's a crime camera in the middle of the block. And it's in a pretty good location. But there's some issues with street lights and trees blocking street lights and trees blocking some of some extended views of the camera. So I was able to put the arborist in contact with some of the condo associations on the north side of the street, because some of the trees are on private property, and together we're going to be able to take care of that stuff. But the detectives are still, the homicide detectives are still working on following the leads in that case. And I don't have any updates beyond that right now.
Okay. Thank you.
I think I just have two questions that I can go through, and then Commissioner Handerhan after me. Lieutenant, thank you so much again for being here. And I just looked up the date. I believe it was June 13th, where there was a shooting on the 8th Street, where ricocheted bullets hit the Goji Yogi restaurant. And we spoke about this briefly last month. Yes, is there any update on that in investigation or suspects?
No, that is still, they're looking for leads in that case. Goji, I have apparently been pronouncing it wrong, if that is how you pronounce it.
I think, don't hold me to
it. They have hired RDO officers, reimbursable detail officers, for the entire month of July. And I am responsible for staffing all the RDO details throughout the 3rd district, which has been quite a task. But we're pretty good at getting them filled. So hopefully we don't have issues. Some of the RDO officers have been instrumental in some of these incidents that have escalated from inside of clubs and spilled out into the streets and erupted in gunfire. These overtime officers have given chase and retrieved valuable evidence that has allowed us to close at least one of these cases. So if you have the ear of any clubs in the area, I strongly recommend the RDO program. Not because I would love to schedule more people, but it is a really effective and helpful thing, especially for the clubs that are open late and incidents happen.
Right. And for the folks watching, just could you share what RDO stands for?
Reimbursable detail officer. It's it's generally alcohol establishments like bars and clubs and restaurants. They have a contract with the police department, and they agree to take at least 2 officers. The minimum is 2 officers to work specified times, and that's up to the club. Occasionally, ABRA will step in and say, "Hey, you have to have MPD at your establishment," and the officers will be outside to assist in dealing with things that stem from the club and stem in the area. 9th Street is changing. 1900 block of 9th is changing into a main street, and we're waiting for that to kind of get off the ground. And instead of having officers at individual clubs, they're going to be now in the block, which is, again, hugely helpful because they still have to deal with everything that happens in the block.
Okay, great. And then speaking of 9th Street, we saw the kind of recommendation, if you will, from ABRA, or the ruling on Nelly Sports Bar, and how an investigation is pending and now it's official. Could you just share the procedure there and what the next steps are?
I actually do not know what the status of that investigation is. I believe I just saw that it was forwarded to the Office of the Attorney General.
Okay.
And I assume they're going to review it and figure out what the next procedures are. I know there's still protests planned for, I've lost track of what day it is. Today's Thursday, I guess. I think they're tomorrow or Saturday. So MPD is prepared to assist and make sure that the protests happen safely. But that's going to be an ongoing thing for a little bit.
Right. I would love to be able to share what next steps are, just because I think a lot of questions are coming from the community, rightfully so.
Sure.
And with the ABRA ruling yesterday that they were in violation, and then I just kind of read that as a fact rather than these are the next steps. So that would be great just to be able to get from you via email, and then I can share that out.
Sure.
Okay,
If
thank
I
you.
could jump in here, Commissioner Henderhan, just to take a few moments ahead of you. I think this is something that there's a more underlying issue here that we have to deal with, is how does security get certified and who certifies them to work at establishments? When you go with an outside security force instead of MPD off duty, how do they get certified? What is the recourse when they don't perform? And Commissioner Bano, I think your ABR committee should be all over that in looking at what's the procedure, how do we know when there are security plans, security agreements that they're followed up on.
That's something that the ABR committee can take up this month.
Thanks, commissioners, and thanks, Lieutenant, for your update as always. Just want to acknowledge it was a kind of rough start to the month in SMD 1B, and thank you, Commissioner Harris, for mentioning the shooting at 8th in Florida. There was also a homicide at 7th and T. After that homicide, I just want to thank MPD for moving the camera to that location. It has been quieter since, and so I think that is not a kind of silver bullet, but it definitely helps. So thank you. No pun intended. I was curious if you had an update on if there's a suspect that's been identified in the shooting. It was on June 4th at the corner of 7th.
No, not to my knowledge that's been publicly shared yet. I don't know that they have a concrete suspect right now. I can confirm, but as of today when I left work, there was no suspect identified.
Okay, thank you. And then there's a comment in the chat, which I think relates to some work that's really relevant. So I might just draw your attention to it. It's a question from Zoe Liu asking about longer term measures that are being introduced since some of the shootings have felt a little bit more frequent. I know that's a bit anecdotal, but I agree with Zoe. It does feel like it's more frequent. And I know that a couple of us on this line have worked with some of the social service organizations, both with the district agencies and in the community, to work with youth and to think about interventions that can support the businesses who are going through, a couple crises right now, the pandemic first and foremost, but also some of the challenges with violence, which is, usually gets a little worse in the summer. So I know there's a lot of ongoing conversations. I think it's a great question from the community member. And I don't know if there's anything else you want to add.
Every time we have a critical incident, such as a shooting, a homicide, we kind of retool how our members are deployed. That can be a thing that changes obviously very quickly from day to day or even hour by hour. But we sort of increase our presence to hopefully make more contacts in the community and try and drum up more leads, even through face-to-face interactions with officers. But also get more visibility to help with the kind of the community concerns who is traumatized from that critical event. Sometimes, not all the time, but seeing the police in the area kind of helps recover from the incident. So we've been working, as I said earlier, with the thing the murder that happened down at R Street. We go out to each scene and then meet with community members and figure out best steps to what community members think would be helpful in preventing future events. And I was just down there on R Street. Every time this happens, we go out, and whether it's figure out what's going on with the lighting through DDOT, if we can adjust crime cameras and move them around to hopefully drum up new leads. We try to do stuff like that. And also we've recently paired with, I believe, DBH to help give some mental health services to people affected by the violence in the community. So it's an ongoing process. Some of these partnerships are evolving as well, but we're trying to push out what we can to help the people recover from these events.
Thanks, Lieutenant. Oh, and I see another question from Belinda in the chat. And Christina, I think if we have further questions at the end, we can address, or I'm going to put my email in the chat. We will have a public safety community engagement committee meeting in August or maybe early September, but hoping to be in person and outside. So just look out for that. But I want to echo the longer term kind of remedies that the lieutenant was just talking about, where those community meetings will be crucial. And, sometimes the community meeting may be better served without MPD present at first. And then we bring MPD in when needed and when we are able to, talk about that trauma that may have been inflicted. So I think that is great just to note. And thanks to everyone who are putting in questions. We will make sure to follow up with them, but just because of our packed agenda, we need to continue moving along. Just a final note, Commissioner Turner, if I may, on the community engagement events, wanted to shout out to everyone who came out on Saturday and prior. We had a great presence at a Juneteenth event with Long Live Go-Go outside Ben's Chili Bowl. So thanks to everyone who's there. We also were able to support Mayor Muriel Bowser in her DC is Open kind of campaign on U Street with also Ben's. And then this past Saturday, at the Rainbow Ride, as well as Lower Georgia Avenue events called Here's the Scoop. So thanks to everyone who came out to that, and be on the lookout in our newsletter for future events coming up. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. ZPD, Mr. Nelson.
Good evening, everyone. We have one item tonight that the commission needs to vote on. This is a property located at 1250 U Street Northwest. It's in an R1, RF1 zone. It's located in 1B12, which is Sable Harris's SMD. And this is going in front of HPRB. For the applicant is asked for review of their concept design and massing for proposed 10-story building and penthouse construction of townhouses in the alley. And project incorporates the current metro station entrance and 2 buildings that are on 13th Street. This project is actually in the process of formulating a PUD, and we have had multiple meetings, both through the committee and through public meetings that were held by the development team. We had committee meetings in February, March. They took a break so they could make some changes to their plan per committee input, and came back in May, and then made some more changes and came back in June. So the committee is recommending that the ANC support the concept design and massing of the proposed 10-story building plus penthouse, the townhouses in the alley, and the contributing 13th Street townhouses.
And this is for HPRB only.
That is correct.
Commissioner Harris, comments?
Yes, and I do see that we have several community members joining us. So if you could add any questions or comments into the Q&A, and we can read those out loud. If you would like to come off mute, we can discuss that in the community section. I just would like to note that we have reviewed this proposal over the last several months, and there have been several iterations of it. We've also, as a committee, done our best to try to ferret out different things that might come up with HPRB. But I think now is the right time because we could continue to hypothesize, or we could get this through to HPRB and they can raise the issues that they have, since that is their job. So with that, I do want to move that the full ANC support the concept, design, and massing of proposed construction of the 10-story building plus penthouse, construct townhouses at the alley / project incorporates the metro entrance, and contributing 13th Street townhouses at 1250 U Street. I would also like to add that in support of the project, the commission does bring to the board's attention the concern it heard from the community of the alley dwelling's height, and defers to it for a decision as it relates to the historic context. So I know that's a mouthful.
Can you repeat what was included at the end of the committee recommendation?
Yes. So at the end of the committee recommendation, it is to support the concept, design, and massing of the proposed construction of the 10-story building plus penthouse and the construction of the townhouses in the alley.
No, I was looking for the support of, since we don't have that in writing here. Recognizing the concerns of the neighbors, or I forget what you said.
Yes.
If
So
you could repeat that.
that is my addition. It is, I would like to note that if the, commission does vote to support the project, that we do want to bring to the HPRB's attention to the concern that we heard from the community on the height of the alley dwellings and we defer to it for a decision as it relates to the historic context.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion that it repeats the committee recommendation and adds to acknowledge the concerns of the community on alley height and adherence to the historic aspects of the community. Is there discussion or amendments from commissioners?
I just have one quick clarification question. With the context of our later resolution that we're going to be talking about for Reeve Center, this being just a couple blocks down the street. I know early discussions were for included some aspect of commercial being involved at this site. I think early designs were for a hotel, but I'm sure that's subject to change. I'm just curious, has there been any update on that, or if we know like how that will be considered in the process?
So as far as I think we know that it is, I think, still included. However, it's shifted more towards a kind of long-term stay hotel. But again, that could shift, and what's in front of us right now is just for HPRB.
Sounds good. Thank you for that clarification. I appreciate it.
Further discussion? All those in favor, aye. Opposed, nay. Abstentions. One abstention. Thank you. Two abstentions.
No.
Sorry, I was just scratching my head.
One abstention. Thank you. Motion passes. Mr. Nelson.
Okay, so then the last thing I'll say is that the next meeting will be on July 19th at 6:30.
Thank you. Economic Development.
Hi, everyone. Larry Handerhan, Commissioner for 1B01 and Chair of the Economic Development Committee. Our major agenda item tonight is to talk about the Reeve Center redevelopment, the disposition of the property. Before we get to that, do want to just check if there's anyone from the Main Streets on who want to give an update. We just ask them to keep it very short, given the length of time that the rest of our agenda items will take. Okay, seeing none. I'm going to move on to the main item for us tonight. So there is a resolution that we are looking for consideration that is in regards to the disposition of the Reeve Center located at 14th and U. I think folks know it's a really prominent property and the district is looking to dispose of it. There has been just a ton of work done in this space, and I'd like to start off by thanking the Economic Development Committee members, many of whom are on the line tonight, for all the work they did to look at the two proposals that had responded to the district's RFP and give recommendations to this ANC. So those members are Tanya Shand, Patrick Nelson, Krishna Kumar, Karen Gall, Tony Norman, Andre Dujaneri, Santiago Lakatos. So they've done just a tremendous amount of work. This is a really complicated situation. So before we actually introduce the meat of the resolution that the ANC will vote on tonight, we're going to have a few folks offer comments to the broader community. So we're going to start off with DEMPED and then hear from each of the two development teams that have a proposal up. I did want to just note that we have DEMPED hosted a disposition hearing that was open to the public. the subcommittee I just referenced, we had 3 community meetings and 3 publicly noticed discussion meetings. So there's now been, this is the 8th public meeting on this property at this phase. As you're going to hear from DEMPED, this is by no means the final phase. And there is still a long way to go before any ground is broken at this site. I'm happy to answer questions from the community. There'll be a chance for the community to make some comments before the ANC votes, but I want to start off by inviting Patrick Smith from DEMPED to talk a little bit about what DEMPED charged the ANC to do and the timeline for the property.
I am taking him off of me or promoting him to a panelist. So he should be joining us now.
Good evening, commissioners. Thank you so much for having me here this evening. Thank you, Commissioner Hanrahan, for that introduction. For the Reeves project, we are very grateful the time and effort the ANC is putting into this. DEMPED is working diligently towards the goal of closing in the summer of 22 on the property, as stated in the RFP. Our immediate next step will be highly reliant on and informed by the ANC 1B's resolution, and we want to ensure we are responsive to the resolution and what the community has shared. And closing means we are working towards the goal of closing in 2022, meaning conveying title or leasing the land to the team awarded the project so the team has site control. I want to be clear that closing does not mean the start of construction. I do not have an anticipated time for the start of construction at this time. Again, we are working towards closing on the land in summer of 2022. Our next step is really determined after we get a chance to review the resolution, because ANC 1B's resolution is not a, hey, we got the resolution, check the box. DEMPED gives the resolution great weight, and we respect the time and effort the ANC and the community have put into the deliberation and crafting of the resolution. And we need time to assimilate that information contained in there in order to determine what our next step will be regarding the evaluation of the project with that new information. We want to make sure we can request information from the teams if we need to, based on that new information. So as soon as I am able to share what the next step is, or I have other pertinent information I'd be able to share, I will do so. So I'm very eager to get this resolution so that we can start really diving into it and finding out what the community has said.
Patrick, thank you so much. Chair Turner, do we have time for the commissioners to ask Patrick a question or two, or should we move on?
Let's do, if you have a quick question. Let's not get into a debate, but ask a question. Obviously, he's from DEMPED.
Says it up there.
Just thank you, Patrick, for your collaboration. I feel like we met 2 years ago now, but it's been great.
Congratulations, Commissioner Farnan, for your election.
Yes, thank you so much again.
I will ask, Patrick, can you clarify that these are initial proposals and there may be another request for best and final?
There is always that possibility, yes. Again, we are waiting for the resolution to inform us of what our next step will be.
Thank you.
Patrick, thanks again for all your work with us. So next up, again, we're going to try to keep this quick, but make sure that we're giving the appropriate context for this really important project. We're going to ask the 2 development teams who we've been working with for the better part of 2.5 months and have given a lot of their time. We're going to ask them again to come before this ANC and give a 2 to 3 minute summary of their development. Again, this is for people who might be on the line who have not been able to join the 8 community meetings before this. And I'll be timing just to make sure that we stick within that 3 minutes. So first up, I'd like to invite Simone Gorning-Devaney from Reeves CMC Venture.
1 second. Okay.
Also, just while Commissioner Harris is making Ms. Gorning-Devaney a panelist, I will drop links into the chat for each of the 2 development team sites. So if people want to poke around, we don't have time tonight for a full presentation, but there's a lot of information available online. The links are also in the agenda, but I'll just put them there for easy access.
Okay. Simone, you should be able to take yourself off of mute.
Okay, so good evening, everyone. I'm Simone Goring-Devaney with CSG Urban Partners. It's my great pleasure to be here this evening to present the Reeves CMC Venture Team's vision for the reimagined Reeves Center. I'd like to thank Commissioners Turner, Harris, and Handerhan, and all of the ANC 1B commissioners for the outstanding community engagement process that our team thinks sets the standards for how community engagement should be done for the disposition of very valuable district property. I'd also like to congratulate Commissioner Farnan for her win. We look forward to working with you. So our team is proposing a transformational project that is respectful of the history of the U Street corridor. We're happy to incorporate the new headquarters of the NAACP. Our project will be a mixed-use project that will include office space, 20,000 square feet of street level. And what we're really proud of is our 30,000 square feet of arts related programming, including an externally visible studio for Alvin Ailey and a new home for City Dance Viva School. We will have 628 units of mixed income housing, most importantly, 188 deeply affordable units. And we have 10 for sale family-sized townhomes that will provide homeownership and wealth creation opportunities for low-income residents. And we're really excited about our 24,000 square foot public plaza, known as the Frederick Douglass Plaza, and our 200-seat Marion Barry Junior Amphitheater. Our community partners include the Viva School, Alvin Ailey, and the Washington Jazz Arts Institute. And our community partners are Habitat for Humanity and the Douglass Community Land Trust, Christian Tabernacle, and the Christian Tabernacle Child Development Center. Our team is minority controlled and led. We have a diverse development team. It includes CSG Urban Partners, the Capri Investment Group, and MRP Realty, and is rounded out by a whole host of minority, women-owned, and other nonprofit organizations. We feel that our team is developing a monumental project worthy of the District of Columbia. We are maximizing deeply affordable rental housing with 188 units, and we are offering a uniquely transformative for sale wealth creation model. Arts, youth, and education is the cornerstone of our project, and we are focusing not just on job creation, but career creation and being a catalyst for not only the existing businesses, but creating new opportunities for small businesses. And we feel like we will help the mayor to achieve her very important equitable development goals. And most importantly, I think we are going to continue our community engagement. We've been having weekly community engagement events at Ben's Chili Bowl. We'll continue our discussions with Ted McGinn at 14th and U Street Farmers Market. We want to make sure that they have a space to come back to that works for them. We're talking to the Capital Pride Alliance and the DC Queer Space Task Force to create a new LGBTQ resource center and potentially dedicated housing for the LGBTQ community. When we met with them, we were shocked to learn that there is no LGBTQ center in the District of Columbia, which has one of the largest LGBTQ communities in the country. And we will continue to work and have discussions with the community about the creation of a U Street bid. So I thank you for the opportunity to present our vision for a transformed Reeves Center and look forward to answering any questions.
Thank you so much. And again, really appreciate your engagement. I know the commissioners have had time with the development teams already. So if there is a kind of point of clarification that feels really urgent, I would ask that we have that now. Otherwise, I'd ask commissioners to save comments or questions for the discussion. Okay. I would like to invite our second development team to present their project, Paula Moya with Legacy Community Partners.
Okay, should be able to speak now.
Thank you, Commissioner Harris. Good evening, commissioners. In behalf of the Legacy Group, we want to thank you for working with us in this journey to answer the Franklin D. Reeves RFP. Our intention when designing the program was to bring innovative and financially sustainable solutions that provided 100% affordable housing, permanent jobs, local arts, humanitarian solutions, hospitality, food, and entertainment. Our response not only meets but exceeds the requirements set up by DEMPED. We have demonstrated over the past few months that this is not just another project for us, and that we're fully committed to our community to build, stay, and grow. This program is our first attempt to capture a vision for this development. It also paints a story that we have heard from you and various neighbors during our community talks, and without displacing the Gino Baroni residents. While we are proud of our by right design and offerings, our program is flexible to adapt and enhance any of the uses that we have proposed. To reflect on the work we have done together on this RFP, here are 7 reasons how our team is the best suited for this project. Number 1, our housing component has the most affordability opportunities and the widest AMI ratios for you. 2, the workforce portfolio is the most robust with the highest number of full-time jobs, and it will contribute to the NWACP program. Number 3, we also are offering the most number of units that residents can own and live in the city. 4, the arts component is the most diverse as musicianship, whose our local arts programmer will provide music education, arts activation, curated music, fan parade, and programs for the residents and their children. 5, our international renowned humanitarian partner, DC Central Kitchen, will have new jobs and continue to lead the efforts to help those in need. 6, the culinary program will have multiple food vendors activating 14th Street corridor and amplifying the cuisine options. During the weekends, it will nicely complement the farmers market. And finally, our hotel option, it's a long-sought component that brings numerous permanent jobs, entertainment, public amenities, and city tax revenues. We are diverse. We have delivered on diversity in our group, our team, and we promise to work with you in this phase and all subsequent phases. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, and want to afford, and again, just to reiterate, engagement from both teams with this group, both at the committee level and with the commissioners, has been superlative. We really appreciate it. Want to offer the same opportunity for commissioners to ask any point of clarification, questions, and just request you save any comments to the discussion period.
Ms. Moya, could you confirm that the Gino Baroni apartments are not included in your redevelopment?
In the counting for the number of units, correct. We have keep everything that they have intact in the proposal.
So that tax lot is excluded in what you propose? I think it's a tax lot.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Air rights lot.
Air rights lot. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna turn to, thank you again. I'm gonna turn to some of the community comments and just again, encourage everyone to put any comments in the Q&A. I'm gonna summarize them now. I think it's really important to make sure that the commissioners hear once again from people who have shown up tonight. And so I'm just gonna summarize them, but encourage everyone to look at the open one. So we got a comment from Yolanda McCreef, who's a resident of Gino Baroni. She says, having seen both proposals, she'd like to advocate for the Reeves CMC. She cites what they're offering for the neighborhood and the city as a whole, which is affordable housing. She also cited that she liked that they were more forthcoming, or that the other development team wasn't as forthcoming around what they would do with the residents of Gino Baroni, as I think I would encourage folks to look at the resolution that we're going to consider tonight, which does have language that encourages the support for residents who are in that apartment building should a displacement occur, which is something that is a little bit unpredictable at this point in the process, although you heard the development team speak about that. We also got a comment from David Jackson, who would like to advocate for Reeves CMC, which is very similar to for some of the reasons that were mentioned by Yolanda, and specifically citing the Gino Baroni transparency, lack of transparency with the other development. So I would like to just make sure that any attendees who would like to weigh in have the opportunity to do that in the chat function. I also would just like to say that the resolution is pretty long, and that's because we really felt it was important to offer as much context to DEMPED as possible, recognizing they do have the ability to go back to the development teams and make improvements based on community feedback. So we really tried to codify a lot of information in this resolution. I don't see any other comments. So if it's okay with you, Chair Turner, I'd like to, Chair Turner, I would like to move that we adopt the resolution as presented, which articulates the community preferences for the Reeve Center redevelopment.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, commissioners, we have a motion on the resolution as presented. We'll do one round of 2 minutes each by commissioner, and then we'll entertain amendments to the resolution. Commissioner Werleski.
I don't have any comments on the resolution. I think it's solid as is.
Commissioner Luther.
No comment. I like it as it is.
I expected you to say something about the green and blue roof.
Well,
but
that's in there though.
Thank you.
But I said if you want me to, I would like to do something with the green and blue roof and the agriculture and the infrastructure. I do, but yes, sir, that was it. That was it.
Thank you. Commissioner Thomas.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. I just have a few comments. A few comments to make. I won't be in favor of the resolution, and it's pretty much for some of the same reasons that I spoke of before. To me, it's like let me just say this, a cookie cutter, because on just about every block we have residential on top, commercial on the bottom. Talking about housing on the corner of 14th and U Street, for me, doesn't make a lot of sense, simply because we're already getting complaints about noise, traffic, so on and so forth. I think that the particular project should put housing on the corner. There's some pros and cons about both. There's things that I like about both developers. But again, I'm pretty much looking at, the jobs aspect along with the different partnerships and not having residential on the corner of a historic Black, not neighborhood, but historically Black Broadway segue. So yeah, those are the comments that I wanted to make. I guess at this point, it's not too much that I can say to change the developers' prospects on what they propose to build, but I was hoping to have this brief conversation with our commissioners, my fellow commissioners, to see if I could sway them to vote in favor of legacy. That's it.
Thank you. Commissioner Sanchez. Sorry.
Thank you. No further comments from me, other than I want to thank the other commissioners here and the members of the community who spent a lot of time in putting together this very detailed resolution. I think it stands well, so nothing further from me.
Thank you. Commissioner Floyd.
No further comments.
Commissioner Ewert.
Hi, everyone. I do have some comments to make. First off, I just want to say thank you, Commissioner Handerhan, for kind of taking the reins on this. This was a daunting project, and you kind of got thrown into the deep end on it. So I appreciate your hard work. There are aspects of both proposals that I do enjoy, and I think are going to bring positive things to our community. And there are some aspects that I enjoy more than others. A couple of those include the high quality public space, inclusion of the existing commercial retailers who occupy the space now, and the amount of deeply affordable housing that is being offered by both proposals. One thing that I do want to talk about is looking forward. I think with this redevelopment, we are seeing the first step of making this intersection, 14th and U, a real cornerstone for this portion of U Street. I think it offers a really big opportunity to look at how the rest of U Street can look as well. And whether that comes in the form of how we look at the traffic patterns, I think is really important. So I'm happy that this resolution is also mentioning how valuable it could be to potentially reimagine what U Street could look like, make it more pedestrian friendly. Right now, U Street has very narrow sidewalks, and people who are out drinking tend to spill over into the street a lot, and it creates a dangerous situation for everyone involved. I just hope that with this development, that the rest of the city and other departments, with including DDOT, can really think deeply about how U Street can look in the future and what we can do to increase pedestrian safety. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Bayna.
Yeah, I just have a few quick comments and then maybe a process question. So first, just again, echoing others, thank you to Larry and the members of the committee for all their hard work putting together the documents that really laid out everything from all the community engagement meetings. In my view, it was pretty clear which proposal kind of aligned best with the needs of the community, and in terms of providing more deeply affordable housing, in terms of providing public space that was usable, and also in terms of having clear and detailed partnerships that would bring DC residents into working on and training and being a part of building the project and providing jobs to locals. And to me, that was the Reef CMC proposal. I just don't believe that a hotel is the right use for the space in this area. So that also really weighed into my thinking on the issue. So I intend to support the proposal. I don't have any amendments, but I was wondering if we could attach to the resolution like the packet of documents that the committee created that we got to see, because I feel that the side-by-side as well as the 2 rounds of Q&A documents answered by each developer really did a good job fleshing out the different details of the proposal and the needs of the community. So while I think the resolution is well written, it's in resolution speak, which maybe isn't the most clear way to communicate things. And so I don't know if I need to motion or whatever to attach those 4 documents that we were provided to the resolution so that DEMPED sees the full work and expression of the Economic Development Committee.
Commissioner, in my haste to get items into the packet, I neglected to include those. It was meant to be included, and I just didn't get them in last minute. So I do apologize. They will be included.
Okay, so
transmittal.
Great. So the full transmittal will be
they were intended to be important supplemental materials to it.
Fantastic. Thank you. I don't have any further comments.
So I'm getting an even longer document, just to be clear.
Yes.
Patrick, you're getting what you asked for.
You can get more if I can find them.
I really appreciate all this. Thank you.
I'll have the truck of printed material show up. Commissioner Farnan.
Thank you, Chair. Just really quickly want to call out some folks by name, of course, who's already been said. Commissioner Handerhan, amazing undertaking that you have with this committee. And I know we were in a meeting and Commissioner Handerhan was the first to raise his hand to take this on. Don't know if he knew what he was getting himself into. So thank you for that. Of course, Chair Turner, thank you for putting this all on paper. And I'm sure it was with Commissioner Handerhan as well, but I know we would be lost without your expertise in making sure that DEMPED is able to understand this resolution. Commissioner Harris, with her community engagement and deep understanding of both of these projects, I think she's spent a lot of behind the scenes time with the project, with the teams, and with the community who's going to be right around that area. So just wanted to call you out, Commissioner Harris. Also want to do a quick thank you to the former 1B11 Commissioner, Commissioner Hudson, who used to chair the Economic Development Committee. He did a lot of the pre-work and perhaps some of the also behind the scenes. And I think that we'd be remiss without saying thank you to him. Just a quick note that also is reflected in this resolution, Commissioner Hudson's want for, as he always commonly said, 115% daytime foot traffic. So I think we are carrying on that legacy in making sure affordable housing is at the center, but also that foot traffic and bringing daytime traffic to the 14th and U corridor is at the heart of this resolution. Just thank you to everyone. And then of course, I think the tribute is clear to Black Broadway in this resolution. And I think that's been important from the start. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Harris.
Hi. Well, as everyone has echoed, I think, a big round of applause virtually, and a thank you to Commissioner Handerhan. I think you held the same number of community meetings like we did for ZPD, but for 1250 U Street, but condensed it all into a month and a half of back-to-back Tuesdays of, long discussions, presentations. I think it was very important because this building, although small in size in comparison to other large buildings and municipal buildings in DC, represents a really important piece for 14th and U and for DC overall. I think, there are valuable components to both proposals, although I think with the history of this area, I think there is one that does tend to rise a little bit further above the rest. And, we have, as a commissioner of record for 1B12, where for the Reeve Center is, we get a new placard every week with new establishments. And I think that is very, very important and such a key piece to maintain the vibrancy of this area. But I do think we need to introduce some other elements to keep this area growing and to continue and honor and celebrate the history. So I do prefer the space seen as a performing arts area versus another bar or restaurant. That of course is my secondary preference because my first one is deeply affordable housing. I hope that we can continue the community engagement like we've done here at the Reeve Center and onwards, because this is still going to be a longer process. But I have no further comments for discussion.
Thank you. Commissioner Handerhan.
I just want to echo the thanks to my colleagues, Chairman Turner and Commissioner Harris, who is the SMD rep for the site, who were involved, in the appropriate ways this whole time, supporting the commission and the conversation. And to the committee members, it was a drumbeat of Tuesday night sessions when everyone, things were opening up and people still, our attendance was excellent and the engagement was incredible. And so I do really think that the committee members serve as a model for how to take a lot of feedback and put it into something that is hopefully helpful for DEMPED. So in my brief comments, I just want to kind of cover two areas. The role here of the ANC, I think, is to consolidate community feedback presented to the decision makers in the form of DEMPED in a way that is a little bit more of an apples to apples comparison that pushes the development teams to be their best self and recognize that nothing is perfect and we don't actually get to be the decision makers here. But it's really, really, really important in these projects when the city has such a significant impact that they hear from folks. The Economic Development Committee came from a lot, people have a significant variety of backgrounds that, professional and personal, that they brought to the space. So it'd be hard to say, there was any one issue or one topic that was really important. But I do think that, adherence to the intent of the Arts District and the affordable housing were two of the most important things that we heard from the committee. And then a third thing that I want to flag, and you saw reflected in the comments, is one of the first whereas clauses talks about our hope that the development of the Reef Center will not negatively impact the residents of the Gina Baroni apartments, which is kind of right in the parcel that's up for consideration here. So I just want to acknowledge that we had a representative who lived in that building on the committee, who was able to help us understand the intense impact that this kind of development will have, regardless if unpredictable things happen in the future. And I just want to thank the community who is engaged in that way and recognize that development projects have real impact on the people who live nearby. We talked about noise, we talked about parking and a bunch of issues, and I'm just really proud of a document that kind of reflects where the community was at. It's not perfect, but really hope that the committee will consider this as a thoughtful articulation of community preferences in what is arguably the most important development site symbolically in 1B. No further comments.
Thank you. I have a few comments. I think both proposals represent some very important aspects that they bring to the community. For those that have been around for a long time, not as long as Rob Hudson would make you think I've been around, but we have had multiple market studies and analysis about the needs for the area. A hotel has popped up several times that the area can support 1 or 2 boutique hotels. We're never going to get a 500-room hotel. So we start with a boutique hotel that could begin to help us become a destination, have people come here who can stay overnight for cultural tourism or for a business meeting or a meeting or something at Howard University. We've had studies that have shown that it can also support hotel on Lower George Avenue. We do not have those components in our neighborhood, which are essential to building a vibrant neighborhood. Hotels also help you provide a face to those who are coming to visit. They represent the face of the people who live here, who work here, who are invested in the community. So when people go to their front desk, do they see a representation of what Black Broadway, the legacy in the future? We talked a lot about affordable housing. We were not able to consider all the parcels that are available around us. We were given one parcel only to look at. We have other public parcels becoming available, S Street, which is a very large residential street, more adaptable and more suited for more residential housing. We have MPD and the fire department to be redeveloped. The area on V Street, in that area, is more conducive to residential than a loud, vibrant commercial corridor. So we weren't able to consider those, but those are things that should be thought of when looking at this proposal. We also didn't compare apples to apples when looking at housing. The numbers are distorted by use of the air rights lot. If you tear down the existing building and build new stuff, you're going to get a higher number than if you leave it alone as it is and don't include it in your redevelopment. So let's think about that as well. I believe that CMC Ventures did a fantastic job in bringing new arts that I proposed way back at the Grimke, original Grimke. Wouldn't it be great to see people practicing their arts, their performing arts, when walking down the sidewalk? And is there a way to engage people in the public electronically with seeing people? So we start to blend the, dare I say it, the Internet of Things to start to build out our neighborhood. Well, you know what? There's a performance tonight. Here is $5 off if you click now. So lots of opportunities for us there in expanding this. Also with the new school created at Howard for performing arts that's led by Dean Richard. So I think these are all things that would build together to building a destination and improving tourism. So I think that's a great thing that they offer. The amphitheater, another wonderful addition. I am concerned about the sound. We know that we have sound problems around the city, and it's mostly because we don't have a construction code that helps us control that, say like a New York City does or Chicago. So we have to be concerned about those things, but it's a great concept. On the other side with the food court, I'm wondering if it wouldn't compete with other businesses in the area that are already struggling from the pandemic. We have a high saturation of bars and restaurants, which are really taverns, mostly. And how do we make sure that this is a strong economic environment and something that can survive? Or does the food court become an empty shell? And we have to find something else. So there are many things that have to be considered here. And I would like that DMPED take another look at this and do a best and final offer, considering the comments that we've had in the middle of this document, which is very kind of, I think, pretty reasonably balanced and lays out the pros and cons of each, and consider what is best and look at what does the mid-city plan say for the development of this area. So with that, while we do at the end say CMC Ventures more clearly embraces the intent of the arts overlay, that is a single overriding factor that we use because they do the best job of the arts overlay by bringing performance arts. And I think that we were somewhat limited. We didn't look at opportunities to say, well, if you did this or you did that, that's not our job, but that is DMPED's job. And hopefully they will take a look at these proposals, our comments, and say, you know what, we think there's a better blend here than the initial proposals that we're seeing. Unfortunately, you don't see the best and final offer in here. And since I helped author it, it's not one that I would offer an amendment to, but I do have a problem with the resolution without it. Are there any follow-on comments? Commissioner?
I'd just like to make a really quick comment, just say, thank you, James, for your comments. I do think that this is very much the first step in this process, and that this is going to allow us to then work with whichever developers decided to come out with the best proposal that we can make, and getting it on paper, what we like about each proposal and what we value as the commission is important, And next step is holding their feet to the fire.
Commissioner Harris.
Two things. One, I deeply failed to mention the thanks that I have, and I think other fellow commissioners have, for your help on this, Chair Turner. I think you really, really worked behind the scenes on this resolution and really helped guide us majority new commissioners on this process because it is very new for all of us. So, and I think it shows in the work in the resolution and the analysis that you did. So thank you for that. You're going to hate this question, but it's on process. Are we on to amendments now?
We're on to amendments.
Can I make an amendment?
No, you can just ask about it.
Okay.
You can make an amendment.
I would like to make an amendment on
I move to amend.
I move to amend that we have an addition to the whereas on the Gino Baroni bullet point that we strongly.
Whereas, which page is that on?
Oh gosh.
Here, since we have a written proposal, we have to deal with specific language.
Yeah. I am referring to page
Second to last page.
Second to last page, the third whereas.
Okay.
And I would like to add that we strongly encourage DMPED to, I need a better word than this, we strongly encourage DMPED to urge the developer or the proposal chosen engage with the Gino Baroni residents. Because based on feedback that we've heard, they have neither development team has engaged with the residents there since the start. If anything, they've done it at the last minute, but yeah, I'll end it at that.
Okay, as they're required by law to deal with the tenants, whoever is selected for displacement and right of return. That's under TOPA.
Yes, I would hope that we could add to it that they hold community meetings with the residents because it seems like they've been left out of these discussions, despite the developers saying that they have had discussions with them.
Okay. I think I understand that is to, once they agree on what they're going to do, involve the tenants.
Involve the tenants, not just the owners.
Okay. And it is understood that the owners of the apartment has not entered into an agreement with either proposal.
Yes, I believe so. I think there's a community member there who chimed in, and a committee member, Andre, who mentioned, which I would like to raise, that he said, we, the residents, would like to be more involved instead of being kept in the dark. We would like to be just as involved as the church and other stakeholders.
Okay. Any other items you want to add to that? Any questions on the, well, there's an amendment. Is there a second to the amendment?
Second.
Discussion on the amendment.
Commissioner Thomas, do you want to go?
Is your comment on the amendment?
Discussion on the amendment.
We're
Did I
voting
hear-
on the amendment at the moment.
Right. Did I hear you say that the owners of Gino Baroni, they're not, as of today, they're not partnering with either or?
They've not signed an agreement with either or.
Okay, so in
They
that
probably
case-
will not do that until one is selected.
Okay, so why would we add that to the amendment?
I'm adding an amendment for if whatever development team is chosen, that they engage with the tenants and not, as Andre put it, not leave them in the dark, and they include them as stakeholders and a seat at the table versus just engaging with the owners of the building.
I guess I'm a little confused. So if Gino Baroni is not involved or included in what this agenda that we're voting on, why are we adding them in the amendment? That's what I'm asking.
They're included.
I mean,
in
the Gino Baroni.
They're included in the resolution, and because it's part of the parcel, and the amendment as suggested is to essentially adhere to TOPA requirements.
Not just TOPA requirements, to go a step beyond for active community engagement.
I think that's required by TOPA, but okay.
All right.
Commissioner Thomas, it is a little confusing. At least I was confused about the status of the site. And I will note that Legacy Community Partners lists Horning Brothers as a partner. I think the point that Chairman Turner is making is that nothing has been signed. And so I just want to say that I think Commissioner Harris's amendment, possibly duplicative, but I think it would be very considered friendly from the committee perspective, because the interest and engagement is definitely something that came up. And, whatever happens in the future, the impact to the immediate neighbors is going to be profound. And so anything we can do to encourage that would be welcome in my book.
You made the motion. Do you accept that as a friendly amendment?
I do, although I do see that Commissioner Ewert has his hand up and would want him to be able to speak.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that I don't think it's duplicative. Oftentimes the interests of tenants and the interests of owners are against each other. And so I think it is very important to single out that whichever development group is chosen, that they do work closely and directly with tenants in order to make sure that their issues and voices are heard. So yeah, just wanted to highlight that. Thank you, Commissioner Harris and Commissioner Handrahan.
Are there other amendments?
So Chair, just a point of clarification, because it was deemed friendly, does it automatically go in?
It does.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Harris, for suggesting it.
Are there other amendments? Okay, we have a motion before us as amended to include the tenant rights language under that whereas section. Let's do a roll call vote. Commissioner Harris.
Yes.
Now, will you call the vote?
Oh, sorry. My bad. Commissioner Handrahan,
Yay.
Commissioner Orlowski,
Yes.
Commissioner Umar,
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas,
No.
Commissioner Sanchez,
Yes.
Commissioner Floyd,
Abstain.
Commissioner Ewert,
Yes.
Commissioner Bana,
Yes.
Commissioner Turner,
No.
No?
No.
Commissioner Delaney? Here. Commissioner Farnan?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris? Yes. That is 9 yeses. No, 8 yeses, 2 noes, 1 abstention, 1 not present.
The resolution is amended as approved.
Thank you, everyone.
Mr. Anderson, any other items?
Yeah, I am sorry. I'll be super quick though, recognizing how much time that took up. We are going to just want everyone to be aware that we're going to take a little bit of a break on the Economic Development Committee until the district gets responses to the RFP at 815 Florida Avenue. That is the housing finance structure that is going to be, at least to a certain extent, in the jurisdiction of the Economic Development Committee. Again, just want to thank everyone for their engagement the past couple of months, and we will ramp up most likely sometime in this fall. Thanks everyone for their consideration.
Thank you. Just to note that the city doesn't get the response, it's the independent agent itself.
Thank you.
Transportation.
We have one thing to vote on for the Transportation Committee. It's in Commissioner Delaney's district. Should I make the motion?
Yes.
Since he's absent. Awesome. So it is for the thing that we're voting on is a notice of intent at the intersection of Columbia Road Northwest, Warder Street Northwest, and Michigan Avenue Northwest. This is at the border of ANC 1B10 and ANC 1A10. I have attended the ANC 1A Transportation Committee meeting, and the ANC Commissioner Rashida Brown of ANC 1A10 has attended our Transportation Committee meeting. We've coordinated this response to the notice of intent, and the recommendation is the Transportation Committee recommendation is to recommend full ANC support of the NOI from ANC 1B with the addition of painted bike lanes and a recommendation to program the former parking space on the south side of Columbia Road. I'll make the motion to move with the Transportation Committee's recommendation.
Is there a second? Discussion? Discussion? Commissioner Bena? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstention. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Next meeting is going to be on Wednesday, July 14th. That's a typo on the agenda. Looking forward to seeing folks there. Thank you.
Thank you. ABR.
Okay, we have 2 items to vote on, but before we do that, I just wanted to give a quick overview of what we talked about at our June meeting. We discussed, or we had a presentation from St. James, a new establishment coming to 1B. We discussed a few other new placards coming to 1B. I just want to flag for the community, as Commissioner Harris alluded to earlier, there are a lot of new bars and restaurants that now that the public health emergency is winding down and restrictions are lifted, a lot of new applications and substantial change applications have been coming through. So I just want to flag that for the committee that we're going to have some busy meetings coming forward over the next couple of weeks, or excuse me, the July meeting and August meeting as well, probably. So the other thing we discussed was we continued our ongoing discussion of the arts overlay and how that impacts new restaurants and bars in our area. So our next meeting is Wednesday, July 21st at 7 p.m. So I did want to flag that we will have several new placards before us at that meeting. With that, I'm going to, we can move to the 2 items that need a vote. The first one is a settlement agreement with Alice Bar and Lounge, which is 1357 U Street. That's in Commissioner Harris's district, 1B12. So I'll turn it over to Commissioner Harris for any comments before we vote to approve that settlement agreement.
Thank you, Commissioner Bena. As I mentioned earlier, we have a lot of new establishments opening in 1B12, and this is one of them. We were able to have a very productive and great discussion with the representatives from Alice Bar. So, I think it'll set a good tone for the rest of the community. So with that, I move that the full ANC support the settlement agreement in front of us for Alice Bar and Lounge at 1357 U Street.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? And that this settlement agreement adheres to the currently accepted template in use?
Yes.
Thank you. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Abstentions? Passes. Thank you.
Thank you. And I did just want to recognize Commissioner Harris for her hard work attending the ABRA meetings and working back and forth and really representing community concerns at the table with representatives. So the next item is kind of a 3-for-1. We are voting on it to protest, support a stipulated license, and initiate a settlement agreement with Victory Restaurant and Lounge, which is at 2005 14th Street Northwest, also in 1B12 Commissioner Harris's district. This is not a new application. This is a substantial change to add a summer garden. So what we are doing is, protesting on various grounds and keeping our standing. And I'll let Commissioner Harris speak more to that before we take the vote.
The committee is suggesting protest the license or the stipulated license?
The substantial change application.
Okay.
So as Commissioner Bena stated, this isn't a new establishment, although they did open, I believe, maybe a couple months before the pandemic hit. We previously didn't have a settlement agreement in place with Victory. So when they came to the ABR committee meeting, they were very open to creating that. And that is something we are discussing right now, but utilizing the templatized settlement agreements that we have. So this is this will be a longer motion, and essentially, like Commissioner Bena said, we are protesting to keep our standing, and we are also voting to approve the stipulated license with pending a signed settlement agreement. So we wouldn't transmit the approved stipulated license until we get a approved settlement agreement, and we are in the final stages of that. Are there any questions on that? This will be a long motion, so I wanted to pause there.
And I apologize to everyone that it's a little confusing. It's just based on the statutory deadlines that ABRA puts forth. We have to approve things at these meetings, and we only meet every so often. So in order to meet deadlines, we have to be strategic in how we make these votes and these motions.
So to be clear, we're going to vote on a protest of the substantial change.
Yes.
Let's start with that one.
So I move that the full ANC protest the substantial change at Victory Restaurant and Lounge on all applicable grounds, including peace, order, and quiet.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor, aye. Opposed, nay. Abstentions. Motion passes. Thank you. Now we'll go to the stipulated license.
Okay, I move that the full ANC support the stipulated license. Wait, do you want me to add in the under the condition that we will not transmit it?
Let's do it as 3 items.
Okay, so I move that the full ANC support the stipulated license for the summer garden at Victory Restaurant and Lounge.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor, aye. Opposed, nay. Abstentions. Motion passes. Thank you. Now to the settlement agreement.
I move that the full ANC support our templatized settlement agreement with Victory Restaurant and Lounge.
Is there a second? Discussion.
Yeah, I have a question.
Commissioner Farnan, you had your hand up first.
Nope, Commissioner Orlowski, thank you.
Commissioner Orlowski.
I have a question about the settlement agreement. That's not in the packet. Is that, should we be voting on it now, or should we be waiting for an actual settlement agreement to review?
So
This is the templatized agreement. Consistent.
Okay,
with
so just
other-
based on the
other
last one?
reviews.
Yeah, yeah. So we can, so it's essentially very similar to, if not like the exact same as Alice Bar and Lounge templatized version. There may be some tweaks, but it is also right, they're right across, their summer gardens are right across. from it.
Yeah, I know where they are. Just, okay. All right, thank you for the clarification. Appreciate it.
Just to build on that for a moment, Commissioner Bena is going to formalize the template after reviewing with the committee, and where we prior had 2 templates, one for on commercial corridor and one off. He's coming up with a single template that will be used. And that's what this settlement agreement is based on. Any other discussion? All those in favor, aye. Opposed, nay. Abstentions? Motion passes. Next item.
That's all for the ABR committee. Again, our July meeting is Wednesday, July 21st at 7 p.m.
Thank you. We have a draft FY22 budget letter. Commissioner Bena.
Yes, so thank you to all of the commissioners who gave feedback, and thank you to members of the community who filled out our form that was in the newsletter gathering feedback and who attended Commissioner Farnan's Public Safety Community Engagement meeting on the budget last week. We did take all of that into consideration writing the letter, just so the folks are aware. The way that the budget letter is organized is that the first half highlights aspects of the mayor's budget that we support and we believe are priorities, and the second half of the letter highlights items that we felt needed more attention, more funding, more resources, some of which Councilmember Henderson addressed earlier this meeting that the council was able to make some progress on. So I'm happy with how it turned out. It's in the packet, I did want to highlight what Commissioner Turner mentioned earlier, that there is a segment of it that does focus on resources for ANCs, so that we can, as an ANC, have the resources we need to better serve the community, have the technology, have the expertise. So I feel like that was an important part of the letter to highlight as well.
Is there a motion to approve the budget letter?
I move to approve the FY 2022 budget letter.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor, aye. Opposed, nay. Abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you. Wait, my agenda disappeared with a storm alert.
Next up, we have Vice Chair Orlowski on the standard operating procedures.
Commissioner Orlowski.
Sure. Hi. In an effort to clarify some of our rules for committee membership and terms of committee membership and some of the goals we have for expanding participation to a broader segment of the ANC, I took on a little bit of a task of revising our standard operating procedures for committee membership. Without going through the whole thing, I'll just summarize some of the highlights. One was to clarify how new members are added to committees and how long their committee membership lasts. And the other big one was clarifying our quorum requirements and also our membership, our number of members, minimum and maximum for our committees, and also the number of committees that one individual can serve on. This isn't necessarily an effort to keep people from participating. It's more of an opportunity to get other people to participate on committees without making them too large and unwieldy. That rule is also flexible. If one committee doesn't have enough members, then somebody who serves on other committees can join. But the whole overall idea is just to encourage as much participation as we can get from all of the different SMDs in 1B. So that we're not just, one or two SMDs that are dominating the participation. So we get a broader set of opinions. With that said, I will move that we accept the changes to the standard operating procedures regarding committee membership.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion?
Is that going to be on the website?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I need to get a copy of it.
I think this is a very important update, but it does put some impetus on us as commissioners to make sure that we get people from our SMDs to participate. And we need to look at where we have meetings in order to get more participation and when we have committee meetings and when we have ANC meetings. Commissioner Luther has offered the meeting room at Garfield Terrace, which is on the top floor for meetings on occasion. So we could have some rotating meetings there and get participation from people who don't normally participate perhaps. And we can expand and get more people involved and have a broader representation of what I call our three big areas. We have the lower Columbia Heights, that north of Florida, we have Pleasant Plains, and we have U Street. And we tend to be saturated in one of those three areas. And as an ANC, we need that broader representation and input. So thank you for that. Any other comments? All those in favor, aye. Opposed, nay. Abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you. There was discussion on our August meeting, whether to continue with an August meeting. We typically meet every month, every year. Last year during the pandemic, we did have some slow months where we had no items, a couple of months in the summer of no significant items. With this year, I've asked committee members who have been attending the Thursday meetings if there are any significant items that they foresee for August, or could we cancel the ANC meeting in August and handle them in September. I'd like your input on that.
I'd like to just say that I don't think that we can cancel the August meeting. I know that the council goes on recess and Congress is in recess, and August historically is a slow time in DC, but I feel like we have too much going on right now, and it's, we have one big commission meeting a month for people to engage at, and I think it's really important to keep it on the schedule. And even just from a selfish perspective, as the ABR committee chair, we have a lot of placards coming through that would potentially need full commission votes. So I would like to keep the August meetings.
Okay, with the emergency, you still have the 55-day extension. How many things would fall out,
well,
not handled before September?
Well, every day that a business doesn't have its alcohol or its liquor license is a day it's not making money. And so especially some of these businesses that have been hit hard by the pandemic, who are trying to expand with an outdoor space, or maybe these are new establishments coming from someone whose restaurant or bar didn't make it through the pandemic, is now starting over. I don't think that they want to wait 55 days. So every day that they wait is a day that they are hurting. So I don't think, so just from just an ABR perspective, I don't think that we should cancel August.
Well, there are 55 days handled whether or not we handle it early or not. That's
regardless.
That's when
I don't think we should cancel the meeting.
That's whenever does it. So your personal opinion is not to cancel. Commissioner Orlowski.
Yeah, I just wanted to add a little bit to Commissioner Boehner's comment. I've had personally a few requests for stipulated licenses. Those we will, I will send to Commissioner Boehner to add to the agenda for the July 21st meeting, ABR meeting. But I kind of agree. I think that in the past, that's very much true, that the summer meetings tended to be fairly light affairs, but I feel like this year is going to be different just because there's so much happening now that things are opening up. And there's definitely a lot to do with ABR issues.
Is your stipulated expansions?
Sorry, no, they're new.
Changes?
These are new licenses that they're still placarded, but they want to start operating prior to their license being issued.
Okay. Commissioner Farnan.
Thank you, Chair Turner, and thank you for the comments of Commissioner Boehner and Commissioner Orlowski. Could I ask both of you, either of you could answer, if we do not hold the August meeting, and perhaps a question for Chair Turner, could we host a special vote that was specific to ABR committee items that were time sensitive? And if any of these placards or new licenses are time sensitive, like are they actually needing a vote in August, or could we vote in September without hurting their process?
I mean, the 55-day applies no matter what. So if you could address if there are any that require earlier vote.
I mean, any business is going to want us to act faster on their stipulated license so that they can start operating during the placard process. So, I mean,
would they still need a hearing from ABRA though after we act?
Yes, but us voting on a stipulated license allows them to start operating before ABRA officially weighs in.
Oh, understood.
So,
okay.
So, and it, as Commissioner Harris has mentioned, as Commissioner Orlowski has mentioned, we have been trying to approach the settlement agreements in a more systemic, holistic way, as opposed to a bunch of one-offs. And so we're trying to have, a lot of these come together and at once. And so we're negotiating probably a lot more of them simultaneously than we have. And I just wouldn't want to limit our options of when things can get approved by taking that August meeting off the table.
No, thank you for that clarification.
Commissioner Ure.
Just wanted to say that while I don't anticipate that there's going to be many things to vote on for the Transportation Committee, totally comfortable with coming in for the August meeting to ensure that all the things that need to get voted on and approved for ABRA can get voted on and approved.
Isn't ABRA in recess in August?
Regardless of if they're in recess, I just don't think that we should. First of all, I don't know if they're in recess or not, and they're an agency, so I don't think that they would recess. Maybe the board isn't cranking out decisions and orders, but ABRA, the agency, I don't think will pause or recess. And second, I'm sorry to have centered this discussion on ABRA, but it's important that just for the larger community, we maintain our meeting as a place where people can come and listen and express what they want to express. And it's not too much to ask to keep the one meeting a month, in my opinion.
Further discussion? Commissioner Harris.
More of a question. So in August, it's still unclear to me, would we be going back in person or is that September? Larry, Commissioner Handerhan, I see you shaking your head. I wanted to clarify.
James, I think you know better, but I think that would not apply for the August meeting.
According to the latest update from the office of the ANC, we return to in-person effective after July 25th. So the August meeting would be in person. They do not have the final emergency declaration to say that we can be extended.
So
I guess August most likely would be an in-person meeting then.
Unless they extend the public health emergency before then, and the office of the ANC says to keep it virtual.
Correct.
My understanding was we thought that was likely to happen based on the information we got earlier. But you're saying we can't. You're saying we can't count on it, right?
I anticipated the end of October being the return in person. It depends on what the executive and what the council does. There may be multiple extensions here.
So essentially though, I hear you, Commissioner Bena. I think it's incredibly important to continue with the meetings, especially as things are reopening, not just from a kind of nightlife or even like daytime restaurant scene. However, I do wonder logistically, like Chair Turner or others, like, would we be able to, based on what the facts that we have today, would we be able to secure a venue to host our meetings and our committee meetings in August or before August in time?
If the emergency is lifted or expires, government buildings open.
So we would have
We could
space.
meet at Reeves.
Okay.
Also, as a note, the emergency will need to be extended before our 1 week notice of the meeting. So we will be able to notice based on whatever we are able to say is likely. If we have to go in person and we cannot secure a space, we'll be able to properly notice on that. But I think based on the discussion today, we should move forward with the August meeting.
I suspect the council will give broader authorization of an emergency. It's up to the executive to determine how much when. So mostly speculative until we actually see an order. I've asked Gottlieb twice today for updated information. He said there's no change yet.
Seeing him tomorrow, I will also ask.
So what is the general feeling on having a meeting in August. And it will be either in person or virtual.
Just keep it.
Keep that.
Okay.
Commissioner Thomas, you have a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I would be interested in not having a meeting in August, even since city council was taking a vacation. I guess it would feel pretty good right about now. That was it.
Well, most commissions and boards, EBRA does go on recess in August, as does zoning and BZA. So I doubt that Patrick will have anything that will be required for the board during that time. Commissioner Harris, interns.
So we had a discussion with OANC among kind of commissioners. So we're announcing here that we're hiring marketing and neighborhood engagement interns for the summer, which is now. We still need to solidify
I lost Commissioner Harris to others.
Same.
I'm gonna blame the huge lightning
Tornado
and thunder
warning?
I just heard. Yeah.
I just had a lightning strike across the alley from me.
Oi. I can do a quick finish up of Commissioner Harris's thought on the interns. We'll be marketing those opportunities and they will be paid opportunities. So we'll have that on our site in the newsletter. And just as we firm up, I believe that her or the executive committee's goal as a whole is to have these hired by, the end of this month or even the end of August. So please, if you know anyone, high school and college, I believe we're looking for 1 and 1. So thank you.
Thank you. Just quickly on the August meeting, I should say the treasurer quarterly report will be due in August instead of September if we meet in August. Office of the Mayor, is Anthony on?
Apologies, Anthony has let me know, our Ward 1 Moker, he's on the scene in Ward 4 where there was an unfortunate building collapse, but a fortunate event of no serious injuries or harms that have been reported right now. So he will give us an update on that, but he could not be here this evening.
On that collapse, very tragic, not the building that was originally reported. It was a building that was under construction instead of the 15-unit building originally reported. Oscar?
Hi, good evening, everyone. First off, I just want to say congratulations to Commissioner Farnan on your new role at ANC 1B. I have a few updates. I know Councilmember Henderson spoke briefly on the budget process, so I'm not going to go through that. I just want to highlight that once council wraps up budget votes, our office will send a budget-focused email detailing where investments are being made and Ward 1 specific budget items, which will include improvements to our parks, public spaces, and schools. Councilmember Nadeau chairs the Committee on Human Services, and today our committee held the fiscal year 22 budget markup, which includes funding for the Ombudsman for Child Safety and Wellbeing. It adds $1 million to emergency rental assistance. It restores $305,000 in cuts to programs for youth experiencing homelessness. Funds new positions at Vega Board of Ethics and Government Accountability for government transparency. Also funds 3 new staff for the Interagency Council on Homelessness and 3 new domestic violence specialists at the Virginia Williams Family Resource Center. Earlier in June, Councilmember Nadeau introduced the Local Resident Voting Rights Amendment Act of 2021. The legislation amends the District of Columbia Election Code of 1955 to expand the definition of the term qualified elector to include permanent residents for the purpose of local elections. Permanent residents would be able to vote in elections for mayor, DC Council, State Board of Education, advisory neighborhood commissions, and attorney general. Local government became even more consequential during the pandemic as decisions were being made that greatly impacted the health and safety of permanent residents in the District of Columbia. We're excited that it's now safer to have some in-person events while still taking precautions, of course. The council member has been visiting local businesses as they adjust to operating at full capacity again. I've had an opportunity to be out in the community with a few commissioners here in 1B. And for those that I have not had the opportunity to be out in the community with, rest assured that that will happen soon. We are coordinating walkthroughs for each SMD with commissioners to get a comprehensive look at issues in Ward 1 neighborhoods and help address those. We're also in the process of planning summer events, so stay tuned. If you are planning an event and would like for our staff or the council member to join you, please let us know. That's all I have, but I do just want to close off by, saying thank you to our ANC commissioners for all of your diligent work. Your level of commitment is impeccable and it shows when servicing our constituents. Please note that your work does not go unnoticed. So thank you.
Thank you. Since we are now under a tornado warning for DC proper, anyone who needs to drop should drop. Commissioners, any announcements? Community announcements.
I see Commissioner Harris is rejoining us, but we are on community announcements, and I have one Q&A that I can just read out for folks for general awareness. And then Commissioner Harris, I think you have some folks in the attendees with the hands raised. Just one from Maria. She wanted to have her comments heard on 1250 U Street development, and just likes to share her thoughts that it's a luxury apartment building that will be significantly larger and taller than historic or residential homes surrounding it. Since the Q&A box is character limited, she'll also send an email and thanks us for hearing out residents. I think that Commissioner Harris can share more on the 1250 U Street and then go for further community comment.
Just to note, I don't know if Maria is still on the line. We did make that concern heard, and we will be noting it for HPRB. Again, as we've mentioned on many ZPD committee calls and other calls, we are in the HPRB process. This is, we will be getting into zoning later on. This isn't a final decision by any means. They still have to go in front of HPRB, and HPRB will tell them what they need to change or what they need to come back with or what they need to come in front of the ANC again with. So this is not happening overnight. We are still in the middle of this process. They're not even again in front of the zoning commission. We haven't even gotten to that portion on ZPD. And we have noted the height concerns to HPRB. So I just wanted to reiterate that. I know we have some folks who would like to come off of mute. All I ask is that you please be respectful and also mindful that we've held many meetings on this And we voted as a commission on the committee's recommendation after they have held many meetings on this. So if you would like to come off of mute, please raise your hand and I will take you off of mute. I see.
Sable,
Yes.
can I just make one comment that I've not made publicly, I think, in this meeting, but I have in the committee meetings? Since there's a lot of people from the community on here, I want to once again reiterate that anyone who has concerns that they feel has not been properly addressed at the committee level and want to address directly to the HBRB committee, they should sign up as an attendee for the July 22nd meeting and voice your opinion there. They will listen to every single person who wants to speak. You'll get probably 3 minutes to talk. And they do take all of that information into consideration when they make their final rulings. We'll also be able to make the same comments when we get to the zoning commission, because they also allow anyone to participate. As long as you sign up, you can voice your opinion, pro, con, or whatever on this issue. I think that we have spent a lot of time, both in public meetings and in private meetings, to try and get to the best resolution that we can at this point. And now it needs to move to the level where somebody in an official role can make a decision. So please don't think that being silenced at this point, you still have a voice and you need to make sure you use it.
Thank you for that, Patrick. Okay. John, you can take yourself off of mute.
Great, thank you. Thank you, ANC commissioners. Good evening. My name is John Carlos Green, and I'm a former two-term ANC commissioner in 1B12. I'm also a former vice chair of ANC 1B, and I've worked in community engagement at the Office of the Attorney General for over 5 years. I've been to countless ANC meetings in all 8 wards. Something I want you guys to understand is that part of this process is to hear from the public before you take an important vote. For the record, when I was an ANC commissioner, we used to hear from constituents at monthly meetings, especially before important votes, not at the end of a meeting, after votes are already taken during constituent announcements. These are the facts that I want the commission that the commission should have considered before taking this vote on 1250 U Street. This development is unprecedented in size and scale, especially with its alley development as proposed. To the south of this project are 2-story historic homes on T Street. These were built shortly after the Civil War. To the west are 13th Street homes that were built over 100 years old. The ZPD committee was very split on this support and its decision to recommend this to the full ANC. I have not heard one neighbor support this project. Furthermore, the goal of an ANC meeting is to listen to the concerns of the community. Supporting this project will take away precious light from over 20 homes in ANC 1B. Supporting this project will further accelerate gentrification in the U Street neighborhood. Going forward, I plead with you guys to tread lightly on this project, especially when it comes before you on zoning matters. If you care about affordable housing in our ANC, it's important to tread lightly and to hear the concerns at monthly ANC meetings. I've heard several times tonight that ANCs on this commission want to use this meeting to hear from the public. Then do it. Use your great weight and represent us. That's all. Thank you for your time.
I think we have another hand in the attendees.
We do. All right, Jenny, you can take yourself off of mute.
Thanks, Commissioner Harris. And I just wanted to weigh in as the president of U Street Neighborhood Association and say that 1250 U project has brought out a great deal of interest among members. We've actually had new members sign up because of the project. I haven't heard anyone in support from the membership base with the current proposal that the ZPD committee, under a split decision, voted out of committee. The USNA next meeting is July 15th. We'll be voting on whether or not to weigh in on HPRB, and will likely be filing a letter at this point. I can't predict what it will say, but I have yet to hear of any members that are in support of the current proposal. And if there are members in the community that do support this proposal, I would be really curious if anyone could direct them to me. So I think that's a question to the commissioners. If you have any constituents that support it, could you connect me? Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak on any community announcements? Please raise your hand. I think that's it.
There are no more community comments?
No.
Commissioners, thank you for your time. I know it's been a lot of issues to discuss tonight. We do have some terrible weather out there, so if you're going to be out and about, please be careful. And welcome to our new commissioner.
Thanks everyone so much for the warm welcome.
We are adjourned until August.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, everyone, be safe out there. Hope your plants are doing okay, Bo.
Yes, they will be. They're gonna love that rain.